Hey Pi family, let's be real for a moment. If you've been mining Pi for years like I have, you've probably had nights where you stare at your phone, wondering, is all this going to amount to nothing by 2026? It's a tough question, but lately it feels more relevant than ever. A lot of the recent news has shaken the community. I came across a report showing that nearly half of Pi holders believe this project could completely collapse within the next couple of years. That kind of statistic is hard to ignore. If you're confused, frustrated, or even starting to feel betrayed, you're not alone. I've been right there with you. And today, I want to talk openly about the issues Pi is facing, the fears a lot of us share, and the cold realities that might determine the future of this project. Some of what I'm going to say might be uncomfortable to hear, but I believe honesty is better than blind hope. Before we dive deeper, quick note. I share a lot of updates that never make it onto YouTube over on my Telegram and Facebook pages. If you're serious about staying informed, you'll find those links down below in the description. With the way things are going, insider updates are more valuable than ever. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Not long ago, Pi coin hit a high of $3.40. I remember the celebrations, the optimism, the feeling that we were finally on our way to something huge. But fast forward, and Pi is now trading at just around 34 cents. That's a staggering 90% drop. Watching that chart slide downward was like getting punched in the gut. For many of us, that wasn't just numbers on a screen, it was years of belief and effort crumbling in front of us. But what worries me more than the price drop is the trading volume. We're looking at about $28 million in daily trades for something that's supposed to be valued in the billions on paper. That gap tells me the worst possible truth. People are losing interest. And when community interest dries up, the value of any crypto project, no matter how promising, starts to collapse. Without people who care, Pi risks being remembered as just another failed experiment. And it gets even scarier when we talk about token unlocks. Recently, over 160 million Pi tokens, worth around $60 million, hit the market. That was already painful to watch. But here's the kicker, another 160 million tokens are expected to unlock in the near future, and over the next year, more than 1 billion additional tokens could flood the market. That's billions of dollars worth of supply with no clear demand to balance it out. I've been in crypto long enough to know what that means. It's like pouring water into a bucket with a hole at the bottom. No matter how much you add, it just drains away. And unless demand grows dramatically, Pi's tokenomics could end up being its own downfall. Then there's the issue of mainnet delays. This is something that eats away at trust more than almost anything else. We've been told for years that the full mainnet launch is coming. Millions of people have already gone through KYC verification, expecting that step to bring us closer to reality. And yet, here we are, still waiting. Still stuck in a sort of limbo. It reminds me of being in a relationship where someone keeps promising they'll change, but the change never comes. At some point, you start to wonder if they even can deliver, or if they're just buying time. That's how Pi feels right now. Either the team behind the project doesn't have the technical capacity to make this work, or they're deliberately holding back, and neither option inspires confidence. To make matters worse, I can't help but notice how familiar this is to other collapses we've seen in crypto. Think about FTX. For a while, it seemed untouchable. But behind the scenes, warning signs were piling up, liquidity issues, isolated operations, communities starting to lose faith. The similarities to Pi are uncomfortable, to say the least. And then we get to what might be the hardest truth of all, community sentiment. When half of your community openly doubts the project's survival, you're no longer facing a small dip or a temporary setback. You're dealing with a crisis of confidence. And confidence, in the world of crypto, is everything. Technology, partnerships, tokenomics, all of that matters. But if the community stops believing, the whole foundation collapses. I've seen it before, and it's heartbreaking to watch. Optimism spreads, but doubt spreads faster. And once the foundation of belief starts cracking, every other part of the structure is at risk. That's where Pi is right now, at a breaking point where the faith of its own people may decide whether it survives or fades away. And here's the painful part we all need to consider: maybe we were wrong about Pi. Maybe the vision was inspiring, but the execution just isn't there. I've spent years mining, telling friends and family to join, building my hopes around this network. But ignoring the red flags won't make my tokens more valuable. At the end of the day, this comes down to a choice. Are we investors who make decisions based on data and reality? Or are we just hopeful dreamers clinging to the idea of what Pi could have been? It's not an easy choice. Emotionally, it's tough to let go of something we've invested years of time and hope into. But investing on emotion alone is dangerous. The data right now is screaming at us: declining interest, overwhelming supply pressure, endless delays, and a community losing patience. Hope might feel comforting, but it's not a strategy. Waiting for a miracle while ignoring warning signs almost always ends the same way, with bigger losses. I'm not saying you should sell everything tomorrow. But I am saying it's time to step back and be brutally realistic. Look at the facts. Look at the team's track record. Look at what the market is telling you. When you put all of that together, the decision about what to do with your Pi holdings becomes less about blind faith and more about protecting yourself. For me, this isn't about spreading fear, it's about being honest. I started this channel because I believed in Pi's potential, and I still want it to succeed. But pretending that everything is fine when the evidence says otherwise would be doing you a disservice. That's why I'll keep following this story closely, and I'll keep sharing updates with you, whether they're good or bad. Because at the end of the day, you deserve the truth, not just hype. If you appreciate this kind of no-nonsense analysis, do me a favor, hit the like button, leave a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. I'll be covering more crypto projects in the future too, the ones that are thriving, and the ones that are on the verge of collapse. Because in this market, knowing the truth might be the only thing that saves your portfolio. So stay sharp, stay informed, and remember, hope is not a strategy.